So good afternoon, everyone. It has been a pleasure watching all your presentations. Well, what I'm bringing here today is not an actual paper. I've understood this meeting more as a way of knowing each other. So this is more like self-publicity, and I apologize for that, but I will share with you what I have been doing in this field. So my contribution to the field of historical textiles began in 2008 with my PhD project entitled Textile Production in Portugal in the Late Middle Ages, which was published in 2014. And I must say this at this point, I'm an historian in the economic field mainly. So I started this study with the purpose of identifying levels of production, the geographical distribution of production, the relations with trade, the relations with consumption. So that was my perspective. Of course, I had to resort to other kind of sources rather than the written ones. The archaeological ones, also illuminers, paintings, but in those cases, I'm not a specialist, so I had to, of course, use secondary sources. This is articles, books written by archaeologists or art historians, of course. And so, as I said, I'm an historian. I work mainly with written sources because I have the domain of paleography, and this is just a sample of all of the kind of sources that I used in this project. So it goes from municipal and royal legislation, prices tables, also sources related to consumption like wills and inventories, but I also included theater plays, so we have written sources, not only administrative sources, also literary sources, and all others that I've already mentioned. Some of the outputs of the main outputs of this project were so I achieved to establish the geographical distribution of the production centers, textile production centers in Portugal in the late Middle Ages. So this is in Portuguese, but I have translated it. And so we have here, of course, the production of the three main fibers produced in the Middle Ages. I also have some evidence about cotton, but not enough to make a cartography. But we have the wool in the inland area, which is coincident with the shepherding areas. The linen more concentrated in the north, but it's present all over the territory. And linen, I must say, flax is the fiber in which the textile production, the Portuguese textile production is more strong. So there is not such a need of imports like there were in the other sectors. And then we have silk, which is a specific case because it's a luxury industry, and it was present in the main cities of the kingdom and also in a particular hub in the northeast region. Another output was this kind of, let's call it catalog or glossary, if you prefer, of 24 types of fabrics for which I have found evidence, mostly, but not only, but evidence, written evidence for its production in the Portuguese territory between the 13th and the early 16th centuries. And if you look at this list, I have also here the problem of terminology, so I kept the Portuguese terms and I tried to translate it. But if you look at this list, so we have fabrics from all types of fibers. But what I think it was maybe nice discover was these specific names of fabrics associated with toponyms. And this is an evidence not only of standardization of production, but also of a kind of branding. Of course, we're talking about the branding before the legal constitution of brands or designations of origin, but it's a way of affirming and branding and making publicity to the regional and national textiles. This is, of course, common to in Europe for the luxury industries in Flanders or Italy, but we also see those kind of designations appearing in these peripheral economies like the Portuguese one. And it also reveals this quite interesting relation between the textiles and landscape and territory. What also resulted very clear from this research was that the textile material culture and textile production was a result of a multicultural society. As we know, we had 3 different creeds in Iberia in the Middle Ages, so the Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and of course this had an impact on textile production. So the Muslims' role was quite visible. For instance, in the tapestry sector, they were dominant in this specific one. Also, the Muslim heritage is still visible in terminology, as I will present later. The Islamic occupation was also responsible for the introduction of technological innovations, and namely, Muslims were responsible for the introduction of silk art in Iberia. And it also is visible, of course, in the textile patterns. I don't have time to explore all of these items. I will just select the textile technology. And yesterday we had lots of archaeologists talking about these tools and components. And this is not my research, of course. It's from Heritex Velasco. But as you might know, some of the most ancient evidences on the horizontal loom were found in archaeological sites in Portugal, and they date from the Islamic period. More recently, some earlier evidence was found in Switzerland, but these are still some of the most ancient in Europe. And it was found in places where Islamic occupation took place. It also has a quite interesting influence in the textile patterns, and I'm just referring here the case of the blanket from Alentejo, and the designation of Manta do Alentejo is something that we see in the written sources, at least from the 13th century onwards until today. So these blankets are still being produced using the same techniques used in the Middle Ages. And these patterns are similar to those that we can find in pottery from the Islamic period. And these patterns found in pottery are similar to patterns in pottery and textiles that we find in North Africa, namely in shepherd communities, namely in the Berber communities, which is quite interesting seeing this transfer of material culture of this patterns and of this decorative grammatic, let's call it like that. And if you pass to the Jews, the other creed which was present, and I must recall that these communities were active until the expulsion in the end of the 15th century. And the Jews' role is quite visible in the last centuries of the Middle Ages. And written sources give us an evidence, and also literary sources give us evidence on how much they were involved in industrial activities, and namely the textile ones. And we see Jews participating in all phases of textile production, spinning, weaving, dyeing, tailoring a lot, and also on textile trade, because Jews were, of course, dedicated to trade. And I try also to identify, to distribute this amount of artisans, and we see they were clearly present mainly in the inland, but also in the main cities of the kingdom. They were quite important in the weaving sector, but the one in which they were more preeminent was, of course, that of tailoring. And it was not by chance that many kings and other court members had Jewish tailors. So they really mastered the art of tailoring. And they were also engaged in dyeing activities. We don't have a lot of evidence for dyers, but when we have, they are almost always associated to Jews. So this work is, some is a result of the PhD project, some are a continuation, and that we are still developing. This time in a collective project named Med Crafts. It's crafts regulations in Portugal in the late Middle Ages. So it's still ongoing. We are comparing the regulations on crafts between 9 Portuguese cities in order to establish similarities and differences, and we also aim to compare it with other European realities. But my individual contribution to this project is study of the regulations related to textile artisans, which I have already published, leather workers, I have just submitted last month, and on tailors, and that is ongoing research. This led me also to establish some contacts with colleagues, mainly in Iberia, because we have a similar reality. And in 2019, I've organized a seminar in Porto, gathering around 15 top researchers on Iberian textiles. And the aim was precisely to approach the issue of dress and textiles, taking into account the concept of interculturality that is a distinctive mark of the Iberian reality in the Middle Ages. So the book was already submitted this summer, and it's now finally in press. And more recently, I would like to share you some notes on my most recent project. It's an individual project entitled Worlds of Cultural Diversity, Dress and Textiles in Portugal, 13th, 15th centuries. So after making this path of studying the textile production, the raw materials, the textile techniques, and the artisans related to this textile production, it made sense to me finally to approach the pieces, so the garments made with these fabrics. And this research, of course, like every research project, departs from a contemporary concern. The multicultural environment of Europe's busy streets today is self-evident just by strolling them. Clothing items are the most visible of several elements that highlight group identity. The roots of these, however, reach quite far into the past. In the Middle Ages, during hundreds of years, the Iberian Peninsula was home to Moors, Jews, and Christians. Coexistence gave birth to innovation and deep changes in several fields: architecture, food, language, and dress, for instance. The latter is one of the most noticeable and tangible elements of identity, and this project aims at studying dress and textiles in medieval Portugal, applying the concepts of multiculturality and interculturality. And so the major question is, how far did the cultural diversity experienced in Portugal during the Middle Ages impact on the creation and evolution of dress and textile practices at its nexus? Well, my initial hypothesis postulates that the coexistence of several different creeds and cultures encouraged the development of textile materiality and aesthetics, which were syncretic by nature and, as such, inexistent in Europe east of Pyrenees. Textile terminology has proved to be one of the best evidences of cultural diversity. Here we have just a small sample of Portuguese textile-related words with Arabic origin. In this sense, the applied methodology of this project takes the textile vocabulary as a starting point to assess the issues of multi and interculturality by exploring precisely the complex relationships between terminology, artifacts, image, and identities. Research will be based in a wide range of primary sources from the Portuguese archives and libraries, with a special focus on the documents related to consumption. The project will, we hope, deliver a systematic study of dress and textiles in medieval Portugal by highlighting the Islamic, Hebraic, and Christian influences in the creation and survival of a broad lexical and textile heritage, and will help raise this national heritage profile. And thank you very much for your attention.